I wonder what it is you're sensing, hearing.
And what is different about this one, if there is anything at
if
all?
anything.
Just as a, if I may,
Sure.
taking again advantage of the close range,
Sure.
David has been a long time UN correspondent of
I see.
NHK,
In
so
New
he's
York,
very
yeah.
familiar with all United Nations internal proceedings and how UN operates.
This is, I think, a different General Assembly in the sense that it has more items of substance and content than was the case before. The General Assembly of UNWTO in format is not very different from any other General Assembly. I worked briefly with the International Labour Organization in Geneva for a while. Of course, their General Assemblies are bigger because of the numbers of people that come. And it takes 3 weeks, not 5 days, 4 days as we do it. Ours is actually 4 days in some ways. But the format is the same, you know. Delegates, interventions, recording, and all of that. So what we are trying to do here is inject some content and some excitement, if I may say. I think in this General Assembly there were a few items that we were able to inject that made it somewhat different, definitely from the one before and the one before that I have attended. And I see that the members are interacting more with the issues. Now that's because of several reasons, but I think most importantly is we are a reflection of what the sector is all about, and the sector has changed dramatically in the last 10 years. From a rather secondary sector perceived in eyes of the public, and that maybe explains the second item and you have concern about why are we not so much heard about and in the circles of New York or in any other circles, for example, not just in New York, is that tourism was and still to some degree is still not being seen as in the core of people's life. You still read about tourism in the travel sections of papers, not in the economic sector pages. We still have perceptions about tourism that it is a discretionary economy, so to speak, not a core one. Only in the last 10 years have there been a recognition that this is not the case anymore. I mean, many jobs, many societies, many countries are becoming more and more dependent on this sector. So the rise in the affluency and importance of the sector must and is reflecting itself on the visibility and the importance of this organization, the specialized agency that caters for it. And the fact that it is not yet seen as part of the UN system, it's because actually we have only been a specialized agency since 2002. The Korean element there plays a role. I mean, I have to say that when you operate in Korea, you operate better and more efficient, and it puts you on the right line, but in terms of content, it is different.
Yes, substantively. What are the interventions you sit through, the meetings you have in the hall, in the sidelines, on the margins, the bilaterals that you have?
I would say that there are two major issues, well, three, if I would want to add another internal matter. One is this emphasis and thrust on linking tourism to development and to the MDGs, and it comes now 8 or 9 months before the Rio 20, which we're gearing up to. And I think everybody's speaking development terms. I don't know if you had the chance to attend the Ministerial Roundtable.
Sure.
If you attended it, I think the most important thing, which I tried to mention it at the end, but it's an opportunity for me to stress it again, is that the talk is the same talk, but the terms that are used are becoming different now by the ministers. Ministers are not anymore just talking about growth rates and numbers and income. They're talking about jobs. They're talking about alleviating poverty. They're beginning to think with a mindset geared towards development, which is new. The second issue that is important in this General Assembly is the launching of the Study 2030, which is a very important document forecasting the future of this industry and also making some forecasting on the entire economic pattern of development. The third, I think, important item was what just discussed this morning, which is the white paper, and that has to do with the future of this organization and where it's heading. I would say these are the three major issues in this General Assembly.
Security.
Yeah, but the impact of security issues on tourism is dramatic. Tourism and insecurities just don't go hand in hand. And the effect is immediate and huge. If something erupts in a country, the whole thing stops for a while. Picks up quickly, but the impact is quite big.
My colleagues don't mind, just something that you mentioned a little bit earlier. I wonder, by linking to development, something that makes you more relevant in UN terms.
Correct.
Do you, and I'm not somebody who's covered travel and tourism, I'm not familiar with it at all. Do you risk losing credibility to the private sector? Do you, by using development and this sustainable development agenda and this sort of thing as a way of
Not at all.
yourself?
Not at all, and I tell you why. The private sector is very frustrated and anxious and pushing us in the direction of trying to make the world understand a little bit more the relevance of our sector. The private sector is complaining from the fact that governments and the public in general is taking the industry for granted. And that is reflecting on imposing taxations on the industry. It's easy. You tax travel like you tax liquor or you tax cigarettes.
Sin tax, right.
You don't attach enough importance to tourism because it's not a very important thing. So, to the contrary, they see what we are doing as helping them, because in an indirect way, the more the public realizes this, the more will be public funds attached to it, the more will be public and national policies would become more tourism sensitive. So they don't see it at all as taking away from the business part, to the contrary, because they have complaints about it. They have complaints about the fact that the tourism sector is not treated with due respect. If the auto industry catches cold, the whole world coughs. But if 100,000 enterprises in the travel and tourism industry close down, very little attention is paid to that in any public realm. So that's connected to the awareness part, which I think we are quite attuned to and conscious about.
Of the organization.
You mean the white paper?
Yes.
I think I've spoken about 50 minutes maybe. My presentation was in No, the point is this. The point is this. This review has never been done in such a comprehensive way for a long, long time, and the organization grew from one thing to another, one thing to another. What this document attempts to do is stop and think, what are we really doing? Or are we there only because we are there? And based on that, we are trying to ask some very fundamental questions. What's the core mission? And then how to achieve it? And that reflects itself. I mean, if you look at this document from the beginning to the end, it starts with very general concepts and terms and mission definitions and description, but ends up with nuts and bolts, which is how to structure this organization, what programs are relevant, how to manage the internal, financial, administrative, human resource, security, procurement. It goes into all these kind of details. And out of this document, we are going to be generating every meeting, Executive Council or General Assembly, a series of documents that would entail reforms. This General Assembly, we're bringing in three major documents. One is the reform of the technical committees, mergers and otherwise. Two is the reform in the affiliate members. And three, tomorrow you're going to also be seeing how we are going to reform the Global Code of Ethics, Global Committee for the Code of Ethics. Now, there is still much work to be done in other parts, but we're taking it one step at a time. The main purpose of this reform process is to make the organization more relevant, more meaningful, and not to have anybody think that the organization is taking itself for granted, because that's a danger, not only us, but I'm sure you cover all the UN agencies. It's a challenge that the whole UN system has to face. If we really look deep at down and have a soul-searching process, if you want to say so. So we want to do it before anybody else says it, before anybody comes and says, why do we need you at all? Let's find out really an answer to that question and position ourselves accordingly. And I think the world does need something like this, otherwise they would invent one.
You mentioned 2030 as part of one of your earlier. What 2030 represents as far as trends change at all? Or feed the process at all? Is what you look at yourself as far as an organization and how the organization needs to cater to the new travelers, the new markets. How does that 2030 trend not only change the world of travel, but change the organization, impact the organization?
There is a basic difference between the two documents. This one looks at the inside. This one is looking inside and saying, what are we doing and why are we doing it? The 2030 looks at the sector in general. But are the two connected? Of course they are connected, as your question implies. The 2030 tries to account for the changes, particularly those that happened in the last 10 years, in the first decade of the 21st century. The changes were dramatic. The world is changing in an incredible way around us. And the changes were identified. It is a document that is trying to see how the sector is going to behave according to what we have now at hand in the coming 20 years. Much of it is going to be reflected and it to have impact over here, but we can't have an overlap that can be seen directly and immediately. What we are stressing here is a flexible organization, a responsive organization, and for example, when we talk about the structure of the organization, it says we're dismantling departmental structure in favor of a program-based structure. What does that mean? That means that we are adopting a more flexible structure. Management, risk and crisis management is a priority now, so we have a program for that. 4 years from now, this becomes a secondary issue. We drop that and we adopt something else. For example, we don't have yet in our program of work, in our structure, something to do with electronic tourism, e-tourism, and the incorporation of the IT. We see that as becoming more and more important. So in a year or two, we may have to drop something and pick up something else. So in that indirect way, yes, there is a connection between the two. But the previous minister who's now advisor to the president of Kazakhstan, that says, I just want to tell you that since the General Assembly met in Astana in 2009, we have seen a tremendous and a considerable change and shift in the image of the country that reflected on better tourism. 2 years before that, we were in Colombia, in Cartagena, and the minister here was telling me exactly the same. He said it was the turning point. Now, it's not such a big thing, but it is a turning point in the mindset. So we help when we go to places. It's more of a logistic complication, of course, and it limits us in many ways, and we have to become more flexible and adjust because every country approaches it in a different way. To hold a meeting in Africa, it's not like to hold a meeting in Korea or Japan. I mean, the way, the people you work with, the place, even the infrastructure, all is different. But we have a duty and an obligation to do that.
And when we were presenting the white paper, one of the questions that came up was the technical committee boost, so to say. What's your view with regards to that as one of the concerns that's already coming now before the implementation of it?
Technical cooperation has always been an important part of our work, but the small size of our organization does not allow us to operate like many other organizations where they have in-house experts in most of the fields. As I said, I worked for a short period of time in ILO, the International Labour Organization. They have about 3,000 people working there. About 2,000 of them are in Geneva, and half of those are actually just experts. So when they want to extend some kind of technical assistance, they use their own staff, and the course is already embedded there, a big portion of the course. In our case, we can't do that. The people that are professionals and specialized within our organization are very capable, but are very small in number. So we rely on other circles of experts and consultants that we work with, and we know that they know exactly what we want and how to do it, to work with us. But that becomes expensive. So we are faced with the challenge of resource mobilization and raising funds. We can't take money from France and give it to Kenya through France paying its contribution and us channeling that to another country in terms of technical assistance. That's why there is a clear statement in our statutes that says you cannot use budgets for technical assistance. So what we try to do is we try with the country together to approach third-party donor agencies and get some funds to be able to do technical assistance. So the challenge is really how to build a wider network of connections that would enable us to perform our services without exhausting our limited resources. And in that regard, our connection with the UN system is helping us, because the more we are seen in light of our development value, and the closer we are to, for example, what is now the biggest challenge, the MDGs, the more we are able to be attractive to the donor community. It's a challenge, but it's changing, and it's changing quickly.
In doing both, again, MDGs and also being thriving as an industry?
On the first part, we have a very clear instrument that can definitely become the key to this industry aligning itself more and more with the MDGs, which is what we call the Global Code of Ethics. The Global Code of Ethics is a document that, of course, is addressing all stakeholders, but has a very clear implications on what the private sector, the industry, should be heading to. And it translates in business terms into corporate social responsibility. So the more the industry commits itself to these principles embodied in the Global Code of Ethics or in the general concept of corporate social responsibility, the more the industry would become aligned with the Millennium Development Goals. And I tell you, for example, our affiliate members now, we've introduced in the new rules and procedures that were just approved today, that any affiliate member that wants to be a member with us has to sign a complete compliance with the Global Code of Ethics. Now, in doing so, we're also promoting the concept that adhering to these principles, whether they are on the environmental level, environmental responsibility, social responsibility, cultural responsibility, there are many things. I don't think this is a time to detail them, and I think you know about them all. This is also reflecting in good business. So it's not just something, it's like education is expensive, well, try ignorance. So if responsibility is expensive, try irresponsible business that is going to cost you.
Within that list, though, are there one or two that you think that the industry needs to kind of work on?
Yes, I think the environmental part is a crucial part.
And how does that manifest itself in
Well,
real terms, again, the travelers, the general public, the people that we
Well,
write for
it reflects,
understand?
for example, our project on hotel energy solutions is an example of that, where we're creating practical tools of how one of the most important segments of our industry, which is the hospitality sector, hospitality infrastructure, the hotels, can exercise more responsible policies and at the same time make good business by saving money. We've started in Europe, but we could do that in other places. And the industry is responding. The industry is responding very well to what we're saying. The aviation industry is also doing its bit. We have also been able, on the environmental level, because that's only just one aspect, to pinpoint what is really the contribution of our sector in the carbon footprint, for example, when we talk about climate change. And we've established the figure 5% of the carbon footprint is actually generated by the activities of the travel and tourism industry.
Is that good or bad?
That's not too high, but it's 5% too many. What I mean to say is it's less than many people think it is. You know, people think about airplanes moving and this moving and think, oh my God, they are responsible for 15 or 20 or 25%. That's not true. The real figure is 5%. 3% of which is from transportation. The other 2% are from the hotels and other infrastructures. So it's 5%. It's not more and it's not less, but it's 5% too many. Because together with establishing that figure, that percentage, we have to now start doing something about it and setting targets. And the industry is responding. The other aspect which is very important is the social responsibility. You know, the responsibility of the industry vis-à-vis the community that it operates in, which is still an issue that is a challenge. We have tourism that operates in places where people and communities in those places are not feeling really the benefits of tourism at all. Leakages, you know, money being put in, but then it goes out. It goes out to major international corporations, or not filtering down to the people, not building the right synergies. There is not creating the jobs for the people that are there, and not engaging with the people. So I would say the two most important things now are the environment and the social responsibility. By social, I mean socio-economic, but mainly social. Now, on the 2030 part, I think the key there is in responding would be in how much the industry becomes innovative and thinks outside of the box. It is clear from the 2030 that none of the business models of the past is going to survive if people would stick to what they're doing. You have to be innovative, you have to create new products, and you have to be ahead of the game. You also have to be in total control of technological advancement. 1 out of 3 trips all over the world now is done directly from the consumer to the service provider over the internet. The business model, the marketplace is changing completely. So the prerequisites for trying to live with the forecast of 2030 are innovation, technology, and thinking outside of the box.
On the lines of the social economic responsibility, where does the WTO feel it's a conversation to be had with the private sector within countries where there's a very high percentage of leakage? I mean, does WTO feel that that's a discussion to have with tourist boards to give them suggestions as to how to talk to the private sector? Or where does the WTO feel they can take part in stopping some of the leakages?
Okay, we operate on different levels. We are an intergovernmental organization, of course, so we have to work through governments. And through governments we have the possibility of a series of activities and initiatives that would involve other stakeholders. Awareness raising is the most important issue there, but we also are acting extremely useful in providing the knowledge base, the data. For example, you talk about leakages. Can we measure leakages? Who measures them? How do you measure them? Because when you want to embark on awareness-raising activities, you have to have the facts clear and correct in your head. What are the data? What is the income? And how you do it? So we both provide the data as a credible source of measuring and provision of data, and then we do the political, which is the technical work, and then we do the political work of awareness raising. And we've done that in different forms, workshops, campaigns, and in doing that, we can work with any other segment of the society, but we do that always in conjunction and in cooperation and under the direct supervision of our main stakeholders, which are the governments.
And do you feel that there is a level of acceptance of leakages that just comes with encouraging the private sector to build, develop, that has become accepted by some countries?
It goes into stages. When a country first opens up to tourism, they want to do it at any cost. So they don't care about who goes in and how much goes out. They want the whole world to come in. They invite all international big companies to come in, and they do whatever is necessary to do it. Now, once this industry is put in motion and in traction, and the country becomes recognized, the destination becomes recognized and known around the world and everything, then the questions start to be asked. What are we doing? Where are we heading? Who's benefiting from this? So we go into a second phase of saying, wait a minute, yes, but we can't just have an open house for anybody without... then we start thinking of more national investments, more rights to the people, to the community, better improved obligations and commitments from the operating company towards the local community. And then you go into a totally more integrated system where the tourism activities and the local community become so integrated that it becomes the bread and butter of people's lives. So it doesn't happen all at once. You just can't adopt a certain model. And we have seen this in many, many countries where you start by just saying, look, we need anybody to come at the beginning, just like at a foreign direct investment. But then you have the quality, the impact, and all of that. And it is improving. It's improving tremendously. We're making some headway in many, many countries.
Made a great marketing, I think, ad in the U.S. guaranteeing tourist security. In the past maybe 3 or 4 months, it was part of their marketing campaign in the U.S., like guaranteeing security if they visit the country. What are some, as travel writers, and Jordan has seen an increase in travelers, at least from the U.S. I think it's a small percentage, but it's an increase. What are some things that need to happen to bring travelers back to Middle East?
The issue of safety and security is a much bigger issue, and it requires a bigger debate. Connecting that to the Middle East is a particular situation now. But let me first talk about the Middle East, and then I'll conclude with some general things regarding security. In the Middle East, it's not really the safety and the physical safety and security of travelers that is the issue, because travelers are more educated, they're more aware now, and what I'm saying is not something that we need to convince people about, because it's safe if you want to go to streets of, even if you want to. Yesterday we were hearing about events in Egypt and in Cairo, but if you go to Cairo now, you can just go and enjoy your life just as anybody else. So there is no real physical risk and danger there. What is detracting people, discouraging people from going there, are the uncertainties. The region is in the remaking, And it's a fact, and it will continue to be that way for a while now, until it settles, hopefully in a better tone and a better time. And I'm very optimistic. I'm very, very optimistic about what's happening in North Africa and the Middle East. And not only people will be back, they'll be back much stronger and much better, and coming to a healthier and better accommodating environment. Now, a price is being paid, and probably it has to be paid, of the perceptions about that region is that it's a region in the making. So you say, okay, not this year, I'll go next year. Let's see how what happens. So it's basically the uncertainties that are doing it. But Jordan, Egypt, Tunis is not less safe than anywhere else around the world. And I mean anywhere else. I don't mean only the developing countries. Anywhere can be unsafe. So that's with regard to the Middle East and North Africa. But with the concept of safety altogether, I think there is also a wrong assumption that tourists have to be feeling absolutely safe when they go to a certain country. That concept never exists. A country is as safe for its tourists as it is safe for its people. And if a country is not safe for its people, then it's not safe for its tourists. And this extra effort that some countries try to exert on trying to convince people, come, we'll protect you. We have tourism police, we have this, we have that. We have metal detectors at the hotel. That doesn't help. That doesn't work. Because all that it takes is one incident and then everything falls apart. It's the rule of law, transparency, it's to know what your rights are, it's to know that you are as safe as any person safety is a perception. You know, a colleague of yours, when we were in Croatia, told me a story that I'm still having in my mind. It's our friend from time.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes. Right.
I don't know if you were there when he told me that story. It's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, he's from New York, and when September 11 happened, he happened to be in China, and he didn't hear about it until the next day. So he was panicking to call his mother to find out what happened there. And his mother on the other side of the phone says, "Son, come back home. It's not safe out there." And she's in New York, and what's happening is in New York. So it's I think safety is in the minds, really, and home is always safe.